All right, we are right at 2 minutes past the hour, so we will go ahead and get started. Again, if you've just joined us, my name is Mike McCammon. I'm the Executive Director of the NFC Forum. We're very happy to host you today on this webinar that will cover basically the release of NFC Release 15, and most recently the release of CR15, which is our certification release. I have a number of interesting guests, and I'll go ahead and get started. Megan, will you take us to the next slide, please? All right, excellent. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with GoToWebinar, just some quick housekeeping. The control panel you see on your screen does allow you to control some various settings. The way the webinar is set up, you are automatically defaulted to mute, so we won't hear anything from your side, and it will stay muted until we get towards the very end. We do have some time reserved at the end of the session for questions. Feel free to type those questions in as they come to you, or when we get closer to the end of the session, you can do that directly in that pane. You can also control the audio if you ever want to switch the audio over to a telephone as opposed to using your computer. And as I've mentioned, we will be taking questions at the end, so please feel free to post those there. I will kind of go through the ones. We did this session about 8 hours ago. We had 2 minis, so I have to pick a couple of them. They will be read anonymously, so I won't identify you, but please make sure if you have questions to answer them. Next slide, please. Very quickly, our speakers for today, I'm going to do a quick introduction, and then I will turn over to Andreas, who's the co-chair of the Analog Digital Working Group. This is the technical group that did all the work on extended operating volume from a technical specifications point of view. He's very familiar with the work we're doing in the technical committee. Then I will next turn it over to Jose, who is the vice chair of the compliance committee. That's the group that basically defines and builds and releases our certification program. And then finally, Oliver from CI Lab will be joining us to give a tool vendor's perspective on NFC Forum certification and answer some questions there. So go to the next slide, please. And then next slide, please. So I'm going to just give you literally a 4 to 5 minute rundown of the NFC Forum if you're unfamiliar with this group. The NFC Forum is an over 20-year-old organization. We have over 800 members. Our membership transcends most of the familiar global technology consumer companies. We actively collaborate with dozens of adjacent technical bodies, and our mission really is around delivering technology for a variety of use cases in a contactless lifestyle, whether it be payment, transmit, digital keys, packaging, sustainability, and automotive. Again, if you're tapping with your phone to do things, this is kind of our ecosystem that we kind of sit in. Our 9 sponsor members include a variety of different companies, Apple, Google, Huawei, and then we have Identiv, Infineon, NXP, NewCurrent, Sony, and ST. What we really like about our board is we have a very good mix of consumer brands, integrators, as well as silicon providers and technology name brand companies, which really does help guide the organization towards, we think, good outcomes. Next slide, please. So NFC Release 15 is our most recent version of our specifications. It is obviously a wireless interface that's very fast, it's secure, and it's growing ever more useful every year as more and more use cases are added to the technology. We did announce NFC Release 15 back in June, the middle part of June, and last week we released it to the public release of NFC Release 15, which include the certification program. The 2 primary features you'll be hearing about today are extended range and our NDPP specification. There's always small little updates in our security. And as you'll see with the release of NFC Release 15, we also have added some abilities into some more use cases, primarily in the automotive sector. If you'd like to see all the features that are in NFC Release 15, if you were to go to our website, you'll see this badge on the home page. And if you click there, it'll take you to the /NFC Release 15 page, which will give you a list of all the features that are currently available in NFC Release 15. Next slide. We did make a change. If you've been following the NFC Forum for some time, what you will remember is that historically our specification releases and our certification releases were not necessarily aligned. They tended to come at different times. And one of the activities that the board decided to do this last year is harmonize that work and combine them. And so the idea is that starting with NFC Release 15 and going forward, we intend to connect both of them. So when there's new innovation that determines new specifications or changes to our certification program, we will be doing a new version of both at the same time, and follow the process we did here, which was we release it early for our paying members, and then several months later, it'll be available to the public. The reason why we're doing this is really to increase compatibility and also the use of our certification program. We believe, obviously, taking certification is really critical to field interoperability, and we believe this approach will improve that. It was already great, but this will actually improve it even more. All right, next slide. And with that, to talk about the technical committee aspect of this work, I'll introduce Andreas. The floor is yours.
So switching on camera, switching on sound, and I think you can hear me already. At least on my view, it looks like.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Perfect.
Good shape.
So my name is Andreas Wörle. Thank you for introducing me, Mike. I'm acting as one of the co-chairs of the Analog and Digital Working Group, and I'm happy to guide you now through the details of the technical changes that we have pushed in order to make the NFC Release 15 a successful one. Next slide, please, Megan. What we are going to look at is the specification part of the NFC Release 15, so the leftmost part in the picture. As Mike already told you, NFC Forum is a global standard for a variety of use cases and numerous markets. We will also look more into the details of the operating volume extension project, and associated to that, we will talk about the benefits and impact of this operating volume extension. And at the end, we will quickly step into the topic of data structures and the NFC digital product passport. Next slide, please. So Mike said already, NFC Forum is driven by membership contributions and with a large community, and you can imagine that this community is spread over a diverse field of markets. So making use of all these sources, the NFC Forum developed a technology roadmap. Typically, it's developed for 3 to 5 years. And the technical committee is usually the owner of the implementation of this roadmap, right? So the extension of the operating volume of NFC devices is identified as the common denominator to increase user satisfaction and easy adoption of the technology. So that's why it was identified as a key thing to work on, right? And specifically, the automotive industry is requesting reading ranges beyond the currently existing 5 millimeters to support targeted use cases around digital key, for example, for car entry or start of the car. So that was our motivation. Next slide, please. So the Analog and Digital Working Group now got the challenge to work on this range extension. So we had to define ourselves a framework for this exercise in order to meet, on the one hand, customer requirements, and on the other side also to not infringe our own working space, right? So we said, okay, we want to keep all our reference antennas we have in the analog specification so far. We want to keep them all as valid antennas. And of course, we want to keep our harmonization we have received and established with ISO 14443 also alive. And additionally, we want to be backwards compatible. So whatever we define, it should not work with the old devices we have already in the field. And as a result, we managed to increase the operating volume along the Z-axis up to 20 millimeters. So this is 4 times the size we have defined up to now. Yeah, the question is now, did we comply with our framework? 4 times the size seems like it's difficult, but yes, we managed this by allowing pollers to emit a little bit more power, especially if they are implementing polar 6 like, so very small antennas. Here we found out that we are not completely aligned to ISO, and it is good if you allow here more room to provide more power to these pollers. And this is one thing we changed, and obviously we still stayed in the harmonization to ISO. On the other hand, we also required pollers to be more sensible when receiving load modulation from listeners. Also here we had a boundary which was given from the ISO 14443, which is the EMD requirements. We did not want to have oversensitive pollers. They should still be EMD safe. So the result is a 20 millimeter operating volume, which is now available in our analog technical specification version 3.0. Next slide, please. The benefits and the impact is, of course, evident for many of the markets, because it's not only for automotive available, it's all in the analog specification, so anyone can benefit from this operating volume extension, the transport, digital identity, retail payment, you name it. How will end users benefit from it? Of course, the extension of an operating volume allows a stable connection setup, no interruption of ongoing transaction, and therefore even faster execution. You can imagine it's way easier to find a spot to tap. Small movements do not hinder, and transactions start even earlier already as you approach it. What's the benefit for integrators? Yeah, you keep the freedom to design your antennas as you're used to it, right? So you don't need to not think about the small antenna form factors where we included them. So it's still possible to use small antennas or even big antennas, depending on your use case. And still you have the 20 millimeters of operating volume. Yeah, and that's the essence of the range extension in the analog specification version 3.0, which is now released as a part of NFC Release 15. Then switching to a completely different topic, and to the next slide, please. Which is the NDPP specification. NDPP stands for NFC Digital Product Passport specification. Also, this was on the NFC Forum roadmap with a little bit of different title. It was about extension of data structures. So the product passport digital product passport specification is typically defined by legislation around the world to support circular economy, and one of the riders here is the European Union. They have defined digital product class data types like link data, which hosts some online information, basic data, which is ready to store offline data, and supplemental data, which is additional information, be it static or even dynamic during lifetime of a product. These specific data types, which are defined, have to be stored on NFC data carriers like tags, and this is the goal of this exercise. Our record types, NFC Forum has defined as of today, we're not sufficiently covering all these defined data types, so we had to work on this a little bit, and we have defined 2 new data types, which is the multiple URI record and the NFC digital product passport data type. The good thing is that it still is coexisting with other record types in NDEF messages, and still allows to make use of the automatic URI switching of the current reading of the current phones. Yeah, and that's it, what I can say about the technical side of NFC Release 15. And I hand over to José.
Hello, this is José Mangioni. I'm working for ST Microelectronics, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Compliance Committee. So thank you, Andreas, for handing over to me. So we will discuss the NFC Release 15 impact on the certification. Next slide, please. As you've heard so far, so NFC Release 15 is made of a new specification release, analog specification 3.0. And here we are covering specifically the impact on the certifications, meaning how we would certify devices that are designed based on this analog 3.0 specification. So in particular, we will discuss the scope and the content of CR15, the impact of CR15 on the device classes, and now that we have announced CR15, what happens to CR14, which we call the grace period. Next slide, please. Let's go over the scope and content of CR15. The most important objective of CR15 is to enable the NFC Forum 20mm operating volume in order to test and ensure interoperability of devices within the 20mm operating volume. So CR15 is adding new test cases for OV20, operating volume 20mm, to check that devices in the 20mm operating volume work, and also that devices that are still working or designed to meet the OV5 operating volume 5mm works as well. So we cover both aspects. So this is really the major update of CR15, but as usual, as continuous improvement, every time we do a new release, we make some other updates which are more minor, but still important. Up to now, the polar test cases names do not differentiate which parameters they are using in a particular application of that test case. So it covers a lot of different parameters like resonant frequency, loads, etc. What we've done in CR15 is we are making the test name very descriptive of which parameters and which values is being tested, so that once the result is known when testing against a particular device, we know exactly what works, what doesn't work, and under which conditions. Also, we have extended the test for LMA reception. modulation amplitude. In fact, what we have observed is that in some cases, the polar is capable of receiving the response to a command, but not able to decode the content of that frame. And we wanted to improve that, because at the end, what's important is that the polar not only is capable of receiving a very minimum LMA, but is also capable of decoding the command. So we changed the test so that instead of testing only the first command response couple, we extended it to the activation, to the full activation. So we test many more commands, and we make this test, LMA reception test, more robust. This is similar to what we've done in the past for the I missed the fact that on analog test case ID and the names, we also did that in the past for digital test cases. All right. So the key thing about CR15 is that we have now two operating volume, 20 mm operating volume, and the legacy 5 mm operating volume, and they still coexist. So we have not suppressed the 5 mm operating volume, we just added another one. So those two operating volumes coexist, and devices, we will see just in the next slide, can be certified against one or the other, or maybe only one if it's mandated. But they coexist. So devices that are compliant to the 20 mm operating volume will work with 5 mm operating volume compliant devices as well, and reciprocally. Next slide, please. So as I said, we have two operating volumes, OV5 and OV20, and we, as NFC Forum, we have a number of device classes that have been specified and that you can seek certification for. And for those devices, we had to decide whether operating volume 20 is mandatory, or if it is optional, or if there's no change at all compared to existing device classes. We have a total of 18 device classes defined at NFC Forum. Some of them are part of the open ecosystem. Some of them are part of the specific market ecosystem. This is specified in the device requirement document, version 3.4 for CR15. You can see an extract from that document on the right-hand side on the table here. So we worked with other consortiums where applicable in order to define whether communication operating volume 20 is mandatory or not, and how we work with that. And this is the outcome here. As we want to improve overall the user experience, once many devices implement OV20, we made mandatory the support of OV20 for universal mobile reader and card emulation devices. This is shown on the table here, on the first 4 rows. We recognize that some tag devices, specifically passive tags with small form factors, may not be able to work in the operating volume 20 because of physics. Therefore, for the NFC tag devices, we leave a choice to either certify against OV5 or OV20 for some of them. Also, we have added 2 new device classes called ICCE digital key reader device and ICCE digital key card emulation device. This is specifically for the Chinese automotive market. Finally, there are a number of device classes which are untouched, unchanged with respect to operating volume, because they have their own operating volume requirements. Namely, we are talking about the stylus USI WSC reader, wireless charging reader, the generic wireless charging reader, the wireless charging tag, and all the kitchen cordless devices in terms of readers and tag. So those are untouched with respect to the operating volume, and you can find the details in the device requirements version 3.4. Let's move to the next slide, please. So finally, at NFC Forum, we have to decide what we do with CR14. So CR14 was released in January this year. It was targeted at WPC kitchen devices. And now we've launched CR15. So what do we do with CR14? At NFC Forum, we have done due diligence by checking a large number of devices that are available in order to come up with the analog technical specification version 3.0 and ensure that a number of devices will meet already and that some more will be able to meet those requirements. But it's not an exhaustive check. We cannot check every single devices in the market. So now, in order to deploy CR15, we need OEMs and all our NFC Forum partners to take several steps to understand the OV20 requirements, to test their own existing devices against those requirements, possibly change the antennas, do some new development, retest, etc. This will take time for sure. But we encourage all our partners to start right now, if it's not already done, in studying analog technical specification 3.0, because this will take time, and the sooner you start, the better you are prepared. Nevertheless, so this takes time, but we have to set a limit, and we think it is very reasonable for the industry to set a grace period of 36 months for CR14. The grace period is intended as being the time where we have 2 certification releases available that device manufacturers can choose from in order to certify their devices. So CR14 will continue being active, so usable, till October 2028, 3 years from now. And CR15 is already active, so meaning that between now and end of 2028, device manufacturers can choose to certify for CR14 because they are in development of CR14 devices, or go to CR15 right now because OV20 is a key differentiator for them. It will improve user experience for sure, and therefore they can right now start certifying for CR15. Here, what's not shown here is that we might end up defining a new certification release later on, CR16, for example. So we are already thinking about it and brainstorming on what it could be. But of course, we have not set up a deadline here. So when there will be a milestone for CR16, and when it's defined, we will have to decide on the CR15 grace period as well. All right. So now I'm at the end of my part, and I hand over to Oliver, who is representing the test tool manufacturers, and we'll talk about the certification process as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. Hello, my name is Oliver. I'm working for Scilab, and we are one of the authorized test tool vendors to provide test tools for NFC Forum compliant product certifications. And I will explain to you in more detail how this product certification process looks like. Next slide, please. So if you want to certify your product, the first step you have to take is that you determine the device class of your product. As you have seen, Jose introduced some of them. You have to pick essentially what the feature set is that your device will offer, whether it's a tag, whether it's a reader, whether it has a particular application, like, for example, wireless charging. And this device class you choose, then essentially it defines which tests have to be executed for the product certification. Once that is set, you have to select a certification track. The options you have there are, you can go for a full certification. That means all tests applicable for your device class will be executed. And of course, that's necessary for some product that is brand new. But it may be the case that your product is based on a previous version of your product only with certain modifications. Then there is a process which allows you to inherit some of the test results of that previous product. An extreme case of this would, for example, be a renaming. So you have a product, you just rename it, then you file that this is the same product with a different name, and then you essentially get a new product certificate for that new product based on the complete previous executed testing. So once the device class is determined and the certification track is determined, you have to go through an authorized test lab, which will use one of the authorized test tools to perform the actual product certification testing. On the right-hand side of the slide, you see all the authorized test labs. Those have been essentially accredited by the NFC Forum to be allowed to perform product certification testing. And below them, you see a list of the authorized test tools. These are test tools that have been certified by the NFC Forum to be applicable to be used by authorized test labs to perform that certification testing. So once that lab has done the testing, it will provide you with a test report. And your final step to the product certification is then to take that report, file it at the NFC Forum, which will review the report and then eventually issue the certificate for your product. Next slide, please. As you have seen, there are some choices to take for you in the process, among them picking different test labs, picking different test tools, and to ensure that independent of your choice that is available to you or that you have taken, that the actual certification performed is always the same. The NFC Forum has developed a specific tool which is called the test plan generator, and this tool is available through the NFC Forum. What you do with this tool is that into this tool you input all the data for your device, so which device class you have chosen, and then depending on the device class you have chosen, there may be some additional options where you can select which particular features of this device class you support or do not support. And then this tool takes all that information, digests it, tells you whether this is a valid combination of parameters for a product certification. And once you have that valid combination, that tool can output a test plan as an XML file. And this test plan, then you can bring to the authorized test labs, and all the authorized test tools are in fact able to import such a test plan and execute the test according to the test plan that was defined by this NFC Forum tool. So this has the advantage for you that independent of the tool being used in the lab or independent of the test tool you use in your own testing, you can be guaranteed that all the appropriate tests for your product certification are executed with the correct parameters. Next slide, please. Here, this slide gives a list of the features that you will get from any authorized test tool on the market. Of course, the test tools will differentiate in various areas. However, there is a core set of functionality that is present in every test tool that you can purchase on the market. These feature sets are first and foremost, of course, the ability to import those test plans generated by the NFC Forum test plan generator. Then, of course, all these test tools have a UI and a kind of test management system, which allows you then to automatically execute this test plan or run individual tests of the test plan. And of course, also generate defined reporting in various formats to cover the test results. Of course, all the test tools that are available facilitate testing of both sides. That means it doesn't matter whether you want to certify a reader device or a tag device. All the test tools available support both. Then what's also important to note is that all the test tools that are on the market come with all the necessary measurement equipment included. So you buy the test tool from a vendor, and then there is no additional third-party equipment you need. Everything that's needed to perform the certification measurements is included with the test tool. And that, for all test tools, also include the option to have a robot integrated in the test tool. This is quite important for analog testing, where the robot, for one, is used to automate the whole testing. As you have seen, one major step of CR15 is to increase the operating volume. And one major step for the test tools is to use a robot so that when you do the testing, all the positioning in the operating volume is, for one, accurate and reproducible, and then also for you automated, so you don't need to move anything manually, and the testing can be done in a full automated manner. And last but not least, all test tools offer maintenance and evolution. What that means is, for one, of course, maintenance is important because there may be a bug identified in a test tool. There may be an evolution of test cases or a change in test cases if there are certain issues found. So all those test tools offer you maintenance, that you will get updates to fix those bugs and make these adoptions. And as Jose said, eventually NFC Forum, of course, will move from CR15 to CR16. And with the test tools and the maintenance of the test tools, then you also are guaranteed that with the test tool, you can move from CR15 to CR16 and so on. Next slide, please. So far, we have focused on the product certification itself, and that's, of course, one very important step when you release a NFC product to the market. However, as far as testing is concerned, there are actually more steps involved in the whole product development cycle. Here you see a rundown of let's say, top level steps of a product development cycle, focusing on two entities. One is the NFC component vendor, like for example, a silicon vendor who is producing a particular NFC component, and also then the end customer, so an OEM or so, integrating that NFC component into its final product. And in this whole product development cycle, there are various stages where testing in addition or in preparation to the product certification is really important. Of course, if we start with the NFC component vendor, that vendor will do a product development. And in this product development, the vendor relies on having tools that he can use to perform testing with self-defined test cases. So often product NFC component vendors will do in-house testing that even exceeds what is necessary at the NFC Forum product certification to make sure that the products really comply with what is needed for good NFC communication. Then in the next step of the product, an NFC component vendor will often prepare a certification of his own. So for many components, you will get demo boards which have been already certified, so that you can rest assured that they already comply to the specifications. And once that is done, an actual certification testing at an authorized test lab with an authorized test tool takes place. Then, of course, the next step is production, and in production you often also need some form of NFC testing, not as comprehensive as you would do for a product certification, but still some pinpoint testing to make sure whatever you produce is within the specification. Then in the next step, now focusing on the end customer product company, is the next step is that end customer integrates the NFC product, builds his own product around the NFC component, and then of course has to again do ideally in-house pre-certification testing to make sure that his integration works properly. And then again, an important step, that third-party customer will move to an authorized test lab, which uses then an authorized test tool to do the actual certification testing so that you get the certificate on the final end product. And then, of course, also this end customer product company will move into production, where then again, the test focus is that you do pinpoint testing of specific parameters to see that whatever you produce is within specification. So maybe the message from this slide is twofold. For one, of course, certification testing is a crucial step for both an NFC component vendor and an end customer product company in the process of releasing the product to the market. But in addition to that, further test needs exist, and all the authorized test tool vendors that produce test tools for the certification also have typically equipment that is focused for these specific steps along the line to help you to release your NFC product. Next slide, please. Thank you. Now some remarks from Mike.
Yes, thanks, Oliver. So just a couple of quick final comments. And a quick reminder to go ahead and put your questions into the question window. We'll switch to those here in about 2 minutes. Just really quick, quite a lot of text here, but what we are suggesting for people in terms of next actions is, of course, any product designer, whether it be a chip manufacturer to an end consumer company, we certainly would encourage you to start exploring some of these new features and prepare your products for compliance to NFC Release 15. You can download the specifications for NFC Release 15 if you're a paying member of the NFC Forum for free. If you are not a paying member, also an adopter member or the public, you can always purchase our specifications from the website. So you'd be looking primarily for Analog 3.0 and NDPP. Those are the two primary specifications that were updated. But of course, if you're a paying member of the forum, you get all of our specifications for free, which is great. And then start looking into what's available with CR15. And in many cases, if you're already working with a lab, you may want to look into scheduling those services. And if you want to start doing more testing in-house, of course, you can always reach out to a tool vendor for some of those options as well. I will tell you, Andreas mentioned it earlier in the program. We've covered a lot of material, but extended operating volume and digital product passport were actually items that were surfaced in our technology roadmap effort. We are in the process of refreshing that at this moment. If you are currently a member of the NFC Forum, reach out to the appropriate parties to learn how you can be involved in that effort. We do plan to publish that roadmap as early as the end of this calendar year, certainly into next year, but it's obviously a lot of insight into where the market is going in terms of where we're developing the technology roadmap. Next slide. Do I have anything else? That might be it. No, well, we have the Q&A. So what I'll do is I have a couple questions and I will start going through those. If everyone will turn their cameras back on. Great, thanks, Jose. Andres and Oliver. All right. let me take a quick look here. We have a first question. Is it possible to have a copy of the slides? I can work with, let's see here. I'm not sure. I know that we normally will post these in the member platform at some point, but I'll have to get back with this particular participant to see if you are a member and you'll be able to do that. I do know, by the way, that likely before the end of the day, on our website, we will have the video. So this presentation we've done will be available as a video on our website. So if you were to go to the events page and then look for this webinar, what will be there instead of the sign up form will actually be the video. But I can check on how we can make sure. Actually, we can send directly to the person that asked that question. I can record that and do that. All right, next question here. Are there any hardware changes done in compare to the approved test tool for CR14? Are there any hardware changes done in comparison to the approved test tool? I'm not sure I understand that question. Jose, would you understand that question? Is there any hardware changes done in the approved test tool for CR14 or for CR15?
Yes. Well,
it's Oliver could probably answer, right?
Yeah, it's a test tool question, in fact, and well, it applies in general to all test tools. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so first one general remark, that is, as far as I know, there was no change to the NFC Forum reference equipment. So if you already have reference equipment, reference pollers, reference listeners, they stay the same, and you do not need an update of this equipment. You can use the one that you already have. As far as test tools are concerned, here I can only answer for Scilab, as I do not know for the other vendors. For us, the release of CR15 is a pure software update. So you will have to get a new test suite and a new firmware for the test tool, but there is no hardware change. Now, seeing that this was not necessary for us, it's, I think, fairly safe to assume that this is also the case for other test tools.
Yeah, I can add that in general. Yeah, you know, you need to check for every test tool vendor, but I think what Oliver said is true for all of them. Mm-hmm.
All right. The next question is also to Oliver. This is a moment for you to shine. The question is, what can we expect in terms of the implementation of CR15 in test tools? How soon could we expect to be able to get tools that allow me to test for CR15?
So again, so our test tool is already certified and available. And as far as I know, the test tool of Comprium is already going through certification. So it's likely going to be the next one on the market that is available as certified test tool.
Right.
Yeah. And they are more common, in fact. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jose, you know, real quickly, could you just explain that process just a teeny bit? Because maybe people don't realize that when we do a new version of the certification release, we don't just test products, but we also validate the test tools as well. There's an additional step that happens in between that might be interesting for people to hear.
Exactly. No, we have a very robust process for coming up and launching certification releases. In fact, yes, it all starts with you know, the technical specification, which gets translated into test specification, and the test specifications are being implemented by the test tool vendors. Test tool vendors have to implement that. They test against known devices which are compliant to these new requirements, these new test specifications. That's one way. Then they go, once this is available and done, it goes into what we call the validation house, which take a test tool and check against a validation test plan, which we have defined at NFC Forum, to ensure that all the new tests are being implemented as they are described into this validation plan. Once all of that is ready, that test tool is validated against, in this case, certification release 15. And there is, no, even though this is a concurrent process where multiple test tool vendors implement the certification release at the same time, some of them finish earlier, but it's pretty much close to each other. So here we have several test tools being implemented, and one of them is already validated, and more are coming and being validated.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
I do have another question that's been asked. I'm going to get to that in a second, but I do want to cover something that I know has come up over and over when we've talked about this, and this is more for Andreas, I guess, is so how does all these changes affect backward compatibility? So let's say I already have a device that's certified for CR14. Will it work with CR15? Or if I have CR14, do I need to recertify? I mean, like what's backward compatibility story? I know we talked a little about harmonization, but if you could just kind of lay that out more specifically for people to understand.
Yes, I'd like to do that, yeah. Yes, so when we did our exercise on the range extension, we of course took exactly this point into account. So we did not want to create a new requirement for 20 millimeters without having in our heads that these new devices will not work with old devices, right? So the 5 millimeter operating volume is actually a sub set of the 20 millimeter operating volume in all the features we might have, from power, transmission power reception, load modulation, transmission, load modulation reception. So that means a reader certified for NFC CR15 will work with a tag certified for NFC CR14 and vice versa. So this is, from the interoperability point of view, no issue. Of course, if you have a certified device CR14 and you want to have it for CR15, you have to do a certain amount of retesting. But this is a compliance topic, not an interoperability topic. Interoperability-wise, no issue.
Okay, great. This is kind of an open-ended question, so we did get one of our members just to ask, are there any interoperability test events planned? I know we kind of did this kind of during the development cycle in terms of validating that things were going to work. So it's not like a post-launch testing. It was more pre-development. But I will answer the question. We don't have any test events planned, but how would you want to respond to that question? I'll let Andres and then Jose go next.
Yeah, I can give some insights here. This is again one of the aspects we did in our exercise when extending the range, right? So we asked all the members, all the contributing members of the analog and digital working group, having access to devices, to certified devices, to make an effort and check for compliance against these new requirements. Here we had a critical number of devices which could achieve these new requirements. It's not an interoperability test event, yes, I agree, but it is something to make a proof that what we are inventing here or what we are driving here is not something based on pure theory and some reference devices. It was verified on real devices, right? Real tags, real readers, real mobile phones, and we had a variety of devices, actually all devices available in NFC Forum, and for which this range extension is applicable, and we were showing that it is possible for many of those devices to achieve these new requirements.
Great. I'm going to kind of toss this last question to Oliver and Jose, but I think for a lot of people, it seems obvious that like chip manufacturers that do NFC chips would want to have their product certified. But, Oliver, when you talk to end consumer product designers, like what's the what's the business case, if you will, for acquiring a tool and doing testing of an end product, as opposed to just buying like an approved chip and then kind of going at it on your own? What would be some benefits or negatives of doing either of those approaches? Oliver, you go first.
From a technical side, if you ever build an NFC system, then you know, or if you haven't built, then now you learn to know that, let's say, some skill is needed to design the antennas, and then particularly to match the antennas to the, for example, silicon product that you're using. And of course, from all the silicon vendors, you will get a lot of hands-on support to ensure that this match is good. And nonetheless, it really helps to then still test this in-house to make sure that the performance of your end product is what you need it to be or what you expect it to be. And in addition, nowadays, where you have, like, for example, stuff like door handles or readers mounted on walls, NFC, the way you build your system, your housing, metal in the environment, all that can impact the performance of your NFC system, and that needs to be considered for your design. So of course, the silicon vendor has done all he could to show a good performance on his demo system available, and then with your own testing in-house, you can ensure that you bring this performance also into the end product.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go to Jose in a second. I mean, I think that, and I've mentioned this to a lot of times when I go speak at conferences, I think that product designers have had a great luxury of using technologies like ultra wideband or Wi-Fi or Bluetooth because the range is so far. I mean, you don't have to be really careful with a lot of the material. I mean, you have to be, but not like you do with NFC. The range is so short. You really do need to pay a lot of attention to testing and going for certification and design because it's not 100 meters. Like it's not. I mean, you have to be really good at doing this last bit of the art. So Jose, I'm sorry to jump on it, but any quick things you'd like to add as well to this idea of why in-product companies should consider certification?
Yes, I can speak at least as a silicon manufacturer. Yeah, we do the best we can in order to guarantee that our products are certified and will interoperate with other products. But what we do is we provide reference designs, and at ST microelectronics, but also Infineon, NXP. I mean, all the chipset manufacturers do pretty much the same. So we provide a number of reference design with specific antennas representative of what's in the market. But as those we are talking about tiny design, low energy, etc., and specific designs, specific implementations for end products need to be checked against against the NFC Forum specifications through certification or through testing, because depending on how you design your product, the case, the materials, the size of the antenna, the matching network, etc., the product will work, but does it work very well? Does it provide the best user experience? This, as a chipset manufacturer, we cannot guarantee. It's really the end product manufacturer that needs to guarantee it. And this is done through testing and through certification.
Got it. All right, well, I'm looking at the clock and we are right at the top of the hour. So we'll have to cut this short here. I'd like to thank all of my panelists and of course, all of you for joining the webinar today. Hopefully you've come away with a better understanding of where we are with NFC Release 15, and that you will be looking at certification Release 15 in your next product plans, along with the tools and labs that are in our ecosystem. We'd like to thank all of them for making NFC Forum a success. So thanks everyone for your day. Have a good rest of your afternoon or evening.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.